What's up everybody, I'm HoopsandHipHop. So I think it's safe to say that the hype is real for Pokemon Sword and Shield, and I think one of the biggest reasons for that is the beautiful look of the brand new setting of these games, the Galar region. Galar has an excellent countryside feel to it that really seems to be appealing to a lot of people, myself included. However, the breathtaking vistas of Galar aren't the only thing it has to offer, because it also seems to have a number of interesting connections to other things, both within the scope of Pokemon and even some outside of it as well, and these connections are what I wanted to highlight in this video. There are actually two different types of connections that we're going to be discussing though, because as I hinted at in the title, there are also a number of very distinct and undeniable connections between Kalos and Galar that are certainly worth being explored, and there's a good chance we'll be exploring some sides to those here that you haven't heard discussed before. But there are also some fun connections that are outside of the whole Kalos-Galar conspiracy that are also worth some attention too. So we're going to be taking a look at both of those in this video, and now that we've established all of the ground rules, why don't we go ahead and just get started. Alright, the first one we're going to cover here is a Kalos related connection, and we'll pretty much be going back and forth between the Kalos and non-Kalos connections as we go throughout the video. Anyways, what we're addressing here is the fact that this underground mine area in the Sword and Shield trailer looks exactly, and I mean exactly, like Glittering Cave from Kalos in Pokemon X and Y. Now, this is something I actually briefly mentioned in my first impressions video for the trailer, but it was something I kind of mentioned subconsciously, because at the time, I didn't realize just how similar they truly are, because if I'm being frank, these two places are literally the same. They both have a reddish rock floor and red rock walls surrounding them, they both have glowing, multicolored crystals all throughout their respective areas, and they even both have mine carts and railroad tracks within them as well. On the one hand, I am aware that every Pokemon game is going to have your obligatory cave, forest, mountain, desert, whatever area just for the sake of variety, so naturally you're going to have some similar areas from game to game, but you do not usually have similarities like this. Glittering Cave is a fairly distinctive area, not because it's a mining cave, because that's a fairly common trope too, but because of the glittering multicolored crystals that can be found throughout it. If these were regular crystals, again, classic mining area, no big deal, but these are glowing multicolored crystals, and I'd say that's a fairly unique trait, and even if it can be described as a standard video game area, this happened in the 6th generation. That wasn't that long ago, and if you put them side by side, it's like Game Freak just ripped this location from Kalos and put it in Galar. Like, it's too identical not to mean something. Now, does it mean that we're going to be able to go to Kalos and this is the bridge between the two regions? Not necessarily, but there's more going on here than just a simple coincidence, and I certainly feel like Game Freak has got a few sneaky sneaks up their sleeve that they just can't wait to surprise us with. Next up is a non-Kalos connection to the Galar region, but it's still an immensely interesting one, as it not only connects to the real world, but also the anime, and reveals what very well could have been a hint at the 8th generation from the Pokemon Company themselves before it was even revealed. Believe it or not, the Galar region actually shares its name with the name of a town in northern Spain, also named Galar. Now, this is interesting for a couple different reasons. One, because Game Freak doesn't usually name their regions after things in the real world that also have that name, unless there's a direct connection between the two, like with the Kanto region being named after the real world Kanto region, for example. Instead, they usually just use their own unique names that they come up with. But the Pokemon Company could have actually used this little Spanish village to their advantage, because if you recall during the last Pokemon movie, The Power of Us, Ash was wearing a jacket with a particularly distinctive colored collar, one that matches the color and pattern of the flag of Spain. Now, at the time, many people speculated that this could be a hint at a Spain-based region, but with hindsight being 2020, I believe the Pokemon Company was fully aware of this town in Spain and added this pattern to Ash's jacket as a hint that the key to uncovering the identity of the Galar region lied within Spain and the small town of Galar. Now we're gonna head back to the Kalos side of things for a bit and talk about one of the more obvious connections, but dig a little bit deeper into it to show how it could really be something that pans out in the final game, and that would be trains. In Galar, there is a clear major focus on trains as there are tracks running all throughout the region, and we also see trains several times in the trailer. This unsurprisingly turned a lot of heads because of course everyone remembers that infamously unused train station in Koroway Town from Pokemon X and Y, and many people still, even after almost 6 years of X and Y being released, are kind of just sitting there waiting for Game Freak to do something with it, cause it just seemed way too off to be one of those unexplained mysteries that never gets resolved within a video game. And now that we have a region that heavily uses trains, it just seems a little too convenient, and many are hopeful that this is a sign of a return to Kalos and Sword and Shield, and also the grand return of the 2-region feature that we only ever saw in Gold and Silver and their remakes. But even though there's a lot to see on this idea from the surface, it actually goes a little bit deeper, literally with a little bit of digging. In our own actual real world, there is in fact a train that can take you from London in the UK, aka Galar, to Paris in France, aka Kalos, in about 2 hours. Just looking at a map, you might wonder how this is possible since the two countries aren't connected by land, but well, my friend, this is where the power of human innovation comes in, cause the train that makes this trip, called the Eurostar, actually uses an underwater rail tunnel that goes underneath the English Channel to make this trip. And I mean, come on, a train that travels underwater? That is just begging to be included in a Pokemon game, and heck, the last and only time we had 2 regions in a game, one of the ways you could travel between the two was by train. So honestly, if all of this ends up amounting to nothing, I will not only be very surprised, but I will also have to consider honing my pitchfork sharpening abilities, as I might have to go on a troll hunt at that point. Anyways though, before I get too heated, let's switch gears again and go back to non-Kalos stuff. Remember when I said earlier that it was surprising that there was already something named Galar within our own world, and how that doesn't usually happen for Pokemon regions? Well, strap on your surprised Pikachu faces, because it actually happens more than once in Galar's case, and in fact, technically happens more than twice, but we will get into that a little bit later. Believe it or not, there is actually a band based out of Norway named Galar as well, and they've been around since all the way back in 2004. It's also very ironic and funny that this band specializes in metal music, cause you know, Pokemon Sword and Shields are made out of metal. Yeah, I know, I'm not very funny. But while we're on that note, it's also worth noting that Galar is a very industrial region from the look of things, and those are the types of places where a lot of metal work happens as well. I'm not saying that there's any type of direct connection going on here, because obviously there's not. It's just a very funny and ironic coincidence that had to be mentioned somewhere, so I figured why not here. And finally, to round off the video, we've got one more potential Kalos connection. I mentioned part of this one in a previous video, but I recently discovered a little more that adds to the subject that warranted bringing it up again. In my recent 5 mystery Pokemon in Sword and Shield video, I talked about the wolves that appear in the logos for the games, and how they could possibly be inspired by Skull and Hati, 2 wolves from Norse mythology that chase the sun and moon, which would connect to Kalos as its legendaries are also based on Norse mythology. However, the Norse connection to Galar, and thus the Norse connection between Kalos and Galar, could go even deeper than that, because just like a couple of other things mentioned in this video, there is actually something in Norse mythology named Galar just like the region. Within Norse mythology, Galar is the name of an evil dwarf who had a brother named Faller, and to make a long story short, created something called the Mead of Poetry that was intended to act as a metaphor for poetic inspiration, and was said to give anyone who drank it intelligence such that they would be able to answer or solve any question provided to them. That story didn't end up being too fruitful as it pertained to Pokemon, but just the simple fact that there is something within Norse mythology already named Galar, and Norse mythology was big in Kalos' inspiration, is definitely something to pay attention to as we move forward. As a side note, this Galar is probably where the Galar band got their name, since they're both Norwegian, but still, as many as 3 3 different things being named Galar that seemingly have no connection to the Pokemon region, but also potentially could, is a very interesting set of circumstances that is going to make for a very interesting build-up to the release of these games, especially as we continue to get more information. And there we have it, everybody. 5 really cool connections to Galar, some related to Kalos and the possibility of a 2-region game, some related to other things that really have Galar shaping up to be one of the best Pokemon regions we've ever seen. If you guys enjoyed the video though, be sure to give it a like and let me know in the comments below what you think of these connections and what you think they could possibly mean for the future of the region as well as Pokemon Sword and Shield as a whole. As always, if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe for way more Pokemon content every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, including plenty of coverage on everything Sword and Shield related. You can also give me a follow on Spotify for my Pokemon remixes if you'd like to support the channel, and with all of that being said, I will be back on Tuesday for another video, so be sure to hit that notification bell so you can be notified as soon as it goes live, and until then, as always, I love you guys, and I will smell you guys later.